everybody. So today is my first time actually setting a schedule and trying to stick to it. So today we're going to talk about how, according to the Gnostic text, Eve was not created from the rib of Adam. She was eternal. The Gnostics present a completely different story about creation. So just to refresh everybody's memory, I'm going to basically go over the story of creation according to the book of Genesis. So God creates Adam first from the dust on the ground, places Adam in the Garden of Eden, and then God observes that it was not good for man to be alone and decides to make him a helper suitable for him. God causes a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and while Adam is asleep, he removes one of his ribs and closes up his flesh. From that rib, God creates a woman and brings her to Adam. Adam's response upon seeing her is, "This is how bones of my flesh and flesh of my flesh, she shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man." So according to this narrative, man was created first, woman was created second. So the woman is a derivative of man. She was made from a man's body. She was created explicitly to be his helpmate. And her very name, woman, means to come from man. So the Gnostics, again, they have a completely different narrative. And I actually think this story is interesting. And I had to read it several times to try to fully understand it. Okay. So according to the Gnostics, the Gnostic cosmology, we did not begin with a male patriarch. Instead, we began with an invisible spirit, a pure holy light that simply exists without a beginning or a limitation. This is the supreme source, the highest God. It exists infinitely, and it exists outside of the material world. And the name of this light, or the source, is Barbelo, which is the eternal mother or the universal womb. The Apocryphon of John names her as the first thought, his image, the womb of everything, prior to them all. Barbelo exists before creation itself. This is the very expression of God knowing itself. And Barbelo is, it's not necessarily a woman, but it is referred to with feminine pronouns. From Barbelo flows, let me make sure my mic is on. Okay, y'all can hear me. From Barbelo flows an entire hierarchy of aeons. Um, and they flow through the pleroma, which is the divine realm. Among these aeons is Sophia, which is the goddess of wisdom. And this is the god who created Yaldabaoth, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. The feminine spirit who descended into the Garden of Eden was a direct spiritual daughter of Sophia. And of Barbelo, and of the highest divine source itself. And of course, I'm referring to Eve. Eve was eternal. So, like I said, Yaldabaoth, or the demiurge, is the one who created the material world. But he had these archons work and labor to create Adam's body from matter. They gave him limbs, organs, and modeled him after a divine image. But when they finished him, he laid on the ground and he was unable to rise. The reality of rulers is one of the Gnostic texts. It says, like storm winds, they persisted in blowing, and still Adam could not rise because the living feminine spirit, the pneuma, was not theirs to give. Like I said, Yaldabaoth is not the highest god. He can't actually create life. Only thing he can do is materialize it. He can't create a soul. He can't do any of that. So there's 3 layers to a human being. The first is the soma, which is the physical body. This is the raw material of the lower cosmos. It is the container for what comes later. The second is the psyche, which is the soul or lower mind, the rational structure or ordered intellect formed by the archons, but shaped by the laws of the material world. And then the third composite is the pneuma. The pneuma is the spirit, also called the apinoia, a feminine force descending natively from Sophia. The pneuma is permanently connected to the true divine source. This is your direct connection to God, to the to the true God. So before Eve, Adam did not have a pneuma. The pneuma is the feminine, and Adam did not have it. The archons gave Adam the soma and the psyche, but they can't create the pneuma because it belongs to the source. Without the pneuma, Adam was spiritually dead, and he was imprisoned. So, according to the Gnostic text, Eve did not come into existence when the archons opened Adam's rib. She was not manufactured at all. She descended from the highest realm. Sophia looked down and saw a divine spark imprisoned in clay, which is Adam, who was lying paralyzed in the dark, and she sent a force downward. The Gnostic text refers to this as the epinoia, a divine insight, as well as the zoia, meaning life itself, which is the spiritual Eve, the woman of light, the instructor, and the physician. Now, when they say life, they're not talking about your physical life. It means something completely different. Life basically means knowledge. So no, Eve did not actually create Adam, but she did give him life. So Eve, this woman's spirit, came to Adam and said, "Rise, Adam." And when he saw her, he declared, "It is you who gave me life," and called her mother and physician. So Adam did not express gratitude for the archons who built his body. Instead, he gave gratitude to the feminine source of everything real that was within him, because his material body was not real. Like I said in my other live stream the other day, it's a simulation of something that is real. They're trying to replicate something from the source, but they can't actually create it. So Adam's body did exist before Eve. But he did not have any actual consciousness or perception of reality until she spoke. So Eve did not come from Adam's rib. He came to consciousness because of her. He came to life because of her. According to this Gnostic text, the reality of the rulers, the taking of Adam's rib was not an act of generosity. It wasn't even a taking of his rib per se. What was taken from him was the pneuma. It says, and Adam came to be only with soul. And I mean, after the operation, he was reduced from a tripartite, excuse me, let me say this again, tripartite being into a bipartite one with no spirit and no direct connection to the highest God. So what was taken from Adam was not his rib, it was the extraction of his feminine divine connection to the source. Now let's talk about this serpent in the Garden of Eden. That serpent actually came from Sophia. That serpent was not evil. The serpent was trying to wake Adam. The reason that the serpent appeared, the reason that Sophia, excuse me, appeared in the form of a serpent was to disguise herself from the archons. The serpent was attempting to instruct Eve. There's a lot to, I don't know. There's some gaps in my knowledge, so I don't know that I'm explaining this sufficiently. But um, let me just answer this one question, because it's not really about man versus woman. It's really masculine versus feminine. They're basically saying that the feminine came first and then the masculine came second. The archons possess everything the masculine principle can generate: engineering capacity, rational intelligence, and the ability to shape form from matter. Still, Adam had no life and he laid on the ground. The masculine principle builds vehicles without ignitions and bodies without cells, something that consumes oxygen but has no perception of its own existence. The true self, according to Gnosticism, is the awakening of the spirit, the awakening of the pneuma, which is exclusively feminine. It comes from Sophia and Barbelo. Now, Carl Jung was a student of Gnosticism. In fact, there's some videos where he actually does discuss Gnosticism, and he basically created his own terms, or I'm not sure that he created them, but he referred to the psyche as the anima and the animus. So the entire universe begins with a feminine creation. Eve is the one who woke Adam and told him to rise. Now, just to be clear, you do need the masculine and the feminine in order to have balance. That's what Carl Jung was talking about, the anima and the animus. And what the archons did, unfortunately, is split the masculine from the feminine, because they took the pneuma from Adam. Adam was supposed to be androgynous, or the term that they use in Gnostic texts is he was supposed to be a eunuch. Because in the kingdom of God, there is no gender. There is no male and female. Male and female only exist in the material world. This is the way the archons and Yaldabaoth created Adam in human form. So, according to the Gnostic texts, the pleroma, which is the divine realm, operates in perfect synergy between masculine and feminine. The Gospel of Thomas declares that salvation comes not through domination or suppression, but through reunion. When you make the male and female into a single one, so that the male will not be male nor female being female, then you will enter the kingdom, where male and female refer not to biological sex, but to the masculine and feminine principles within every soul. Now, I've already talked to you all about Yaldabaoth, but for those of you who are new to the channel, Yaldabaoth was created by Sophia. Yaldabaoth is the evil, jealous, wrathful god of the Old Testament, a lesser god. He's arrogant. He's described as resembling a lion. He's incapable of perceiving anything above his own level of existence. Another term that they use is cyclist, which is basically a fool. And his world is a world of chaos and darkness. He said, I am God. There is no other but me. And Sophia actually checked him and said, you are wrong. Yaldabaoth genuinely believed that there was no other God other than him, because he did not have that knowledge. He did not have a connection to the divine source. So when this demiurge commanded Adam not to eat from the tree of knowledge, this is because he did not want Adam to regain his pneuma. This was an evil guy who was trying to control Adam. Adam was basically just like robotic, a slave. I mean, I think there's some gaps in the Orthodox explanation about free will. I still don't believe in free will, but you can't have free will without knowledge of yourself. And this is how Adam obtained that knowledge. There basically was no free will, even though I don't believe that we really have free will, but at the very least, you have a connection to the divine source. Now, I believe, which again, I need to do a little bit more reading, but I believe that prior to being brought to spiritual life, Adam was basically no different from an animal. He had no real self-awareness, no connection to the divine source. Basically, he was just driven by his own instinct. I'm going to do a follow-up to talk about animals. I just need to do a little bit more reading, because I don't want to get that wrong. So the archons built the material world to keep the divine spark dormant, But Eve activated Adam's humanity and his capacity for gnosis. And, well, I guess this is the origin of misogyny. They put a curse on Eve's female body. The curse was pain and childbearing, submission to her husband, because they were upset that Eve and Sophia had actually outsmarted the other archons, because they tricked, well, because Sophia transformed herself into the form of a serpent to where the archons didn't know that she was there, and they were able to get to Adam and then give him his pneuma. So this is why Eve was cursed. Her punishment was to be relegated to perpetual reproduction, to relegate women to be consumed by exhaustion of raising children and giving birth, with no time or energy for spiritual inquiry, by establishing masculine dominance over the feminine. And the masculine energy is the psyche, and then the feminine is the pneuma. So this created the social hierarchy. Now, in the Gospel of the Egyptians, I told you all that Jesus said, I have come to destroy the works of the female. Basically, Jesus was trying to reverse this curse of childbearing. And the Gnostics see this as a rebellion against the archons. Celibacy is the primary means of control by the archons. This is how you resist, by abstaining from procreation. This is how you reverse the curse that is put on women. Don't have sex. At least don't have procreational sex. So misogyny is not a natural human tendency, but it was a cosmic weapon constructed by the archons out of jealousy, terror, and out of fear of their own impotence. When they saw Eve, they saw a being with a direct, unbroken connection to the divine light, to the source, who actually had her pneuma intact. And they feared her. It wasn't even that they just feared her. They basically saw their own limitations, because they realized they could not corrupt her because she had knowledge of her divine source. They couldn't control her in the same way they could control Adam. Eve laughed at them and became a tree. They were outmaneuvered. So that tree in the Garden of Eden was actually Eve, and then that serpent was Sophia. That's how Eve got her instructions from Sophia in order to give Adam his pneuma. There's a word called Toma, which woke Adam. Toma means audacity, reckless, daring, holy, imprudence, the capacity to act from one's deepest knowing without waiting for permission from external authority. I'm trying to think how much of this I actually want to go through. Um, I guess I'll go back to Carl Jung. So, like I said, Carl Jung did study the Gnostic texts, and then he created his whole theory about the anima and the animus. This is the inner Eve and the inner Adam. Every human carries within their unconsciousness a fully formed inner counterpart, the masculine and the feminine. The animus is the masculine principle, the rational, structured, rule-bound, goal-oriented sort of him or her that provides direction and discipline. But when isolated, it becomes rigid, controlling, obsessed with hierarchy, and blind to realities beyond its own construction. This is the spirit of Yaldabaoth. It's not that masculinity is bad, it's that it has to be balanced. Because you can have a negative anima or a negative animus if it's not balanced. And the anima is the feminine side, the intuitive, creative, emotionally connected side. This is the part that lies beyond the rational mind. So the man who has never, well, a man who has a disintegrated anima is basically living an exact condition of Adam before Eve arrived. I've talked about this before. I talked about, maybe I should reserve that for another conversation, misogyny and why men cling to women, why some men do become dependent on women because they think that women have superpowers that they don't have. They're looking for women to fix them. They're looking for women to nurture them and whatever. And it's just like they don't realize that they already have these abilities themselves because they are disconnected from their feminine side. I mean, obviously women give birth, but they don't really have any superpowers. And what makes it so perverse is that because they don't connect to their feminine side, some of them can't actually have empathy with women because they see women as being something separate and distinct from themselves. But once they connect to that feminine side, once they become androgynous or eunuch, then they basically see women as being the same as them. If you guys have any questions about the anima and the animus, I can try to answer that as best as I can. But I have talked about this several times. And so Jung also gave some pushback about the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. He actually created a Trinity, which is the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and what is the fourth one? I believe they call it the Divine Spirit. This is the spirit of Sophia, Barbelo, Mary. He declared in 1950 the dogma of the Assumption of Mary. I want y'all to know that a lot of the psychology from Carl Jung is, well, first of all, a lot of the Gnostic texts are really based in psychology, and Carl Jung just borrowed from that. A lot of things that Carl Jung wrote were not even original, especially about the anima and the animas, the masculine and the feminine. That none of that was original. And then the Carl Jung's work about the shadow, that also came from Gnosticism. So Sophia is the archetype of a complete human being. That's not even really true. Sophia really only represents the feminine side. She actually there I forget what the masculine. There's another guy who represents the masculine. I can't remember his name. Um, Sophia created Yaldabaoth on her own without this masculine god, and that's why Yaldabaoth is so I don't know, disjointed. He's not balanced. He doesn't have an introverted masculine and feminine. He's like purely masculine, purely, well, I would say he has a negative anima, jealous, wrathful, not balanced, not really connected to his feminine side. Okay, I know I probably have a whole bunch of comments. I was going to talk about how, African cultures were matriarchal instead of patriarchal. I was going to explain that, but let me just see if I have any comments before. I don't. I mean, yeah, I could do a separate live stream on that. Why they? I mean, I can tell you why Yaldabaoth did it, because Yaldabaoth was trying to simulate something that he could not create. Yaldabaoth wanted to be a god. He believed he was the highest god, but he could only reign over the material world. So that's why he did it. No, I don't believe this stuff literally. This is allegorical. I'm just trying to give a different perspective about creation. That this is not even about humans being created. This is about the masculine and the feminine. This is more psychology. I don't believe any of this stuff literally, so I hope people are not taking it that way. Okay. Well, I wasn't sure that Carl Jung actually created it, but um, in the psychological literature, he is the one who I guess put context to it. But yeah, he did not create any of that. That I would agree with you on that. All right, y'all. So I hope that clarifies whatever. There's a different perspective that Eve did not come from Adam. She did not come from his rib. It's really the pneuma, which was taken from Adam. and then Eve came to basically give it back to Adam. Let's read this. See, this is what brothers. This is what bothers me of Adam and Eve. If God is all knowing, why would He allow to go to that fruit? Because that's what I'm trying to tell you. The God of the Old Testament is not all knowing. He was actually ignorant. He was a fool. His knowledge was limited. He was not connected to the source. He was not even the highest God. Sophia was a God higher than him. This is really where it bothers me. Well, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense if you actually believe that God is the highest God, because how could He be so ignorant? And the Gnostics have a different perspective, which I think makes more sense. But again, I don't take this stuff literally. Where was Adam? Adam was created. Adam was created or put in the material form by Yaldabaoth, but he was not eternal. Only Eve was eternal. Eve was not created. Eve was always there, but not in the material form. I think it's an excellent allegory to show that creation itself is the problem. Excellence is the problem. No, excuse me. Existence is the problem. Reality is the problem. None of it should be. Right. That's why Jesus said He came to destroy the works of the female. Childbirth was a curse put on women, and for whatever reason, they seem to just go along with it. They should not. And how does God say, I am all knowing, instead of stopping them from touching that fruit? Where did He go? Did He go shopping? No, that's what I'm trying to say. Eve and Sophia tricked the archons. Eve put herself in the form of a tree, and Sophia came in the form of a serpent. So they didn't even know that she was there. They didn't know that Sophia was there, nor did they know that Eve was there. And so Adam ate they tricked the archons, and Adam ate their fruit. So this is a completely different narrative. They didn't stop them because they didn't know they were there. They got tricked. They were upset that they got outsmarted by a woman. Because it sounds like to me, God said, I'll be right back. Don't touch that fruit. I want you better not to touch that fruit. See what happens to you. I'm just waiting for them to touch that fruit. No, they got tricked. That they got outplayed by women. That's just how this whole story plays out. And the serpent said, oh, you can eat this fruit and you have knowledge, not death. You will know all things and good and evil, and you will know that you are not naked. You are naked. Well, yeah, you will, but they're not talking about a physical life and death. They're talking about spiritual life and death. That Adam became spiritually awakened when he ate that fruit. Its entrapment is kind of like a parent that will abuse a child. If you go outside, you know what I'm going to do to you, and then went outside and punishment came to them. Okay, well, like I said, the Gnostics present a completely different story. So I hope I explained it. I don't know if anyone else has any other questions, but yeah, they're not talking about a spiritual birth. They're talking about something completely different. Let me read this last comment, then I guess I'm going to end this live stream. As soon as one existence comes to be, then it is being where new problems occur. More new problems of being and creation, and this is where it's messed up with Sophia. Tia, Matt, and etc. etc. Well, but again, Jesus came to destroy the works of the female. Jesus is telling women to stop giving birth. Who is that woman in the Gnostic text? Jesus, what is her name? I'm trying to remember her name. He told her that, or she asked him, when will death stop? And he said, when women stop giving birth. So that is a solution. Stop giving birth. Stop creating new human beings. And that's when all of this will stop. All right, y'all. I guess I'm going to end this live stream. I hope that clears things up. Be sure to put some comments in there so that I'll know what type of content to cover in the future. If there's any more questions I need to clarify, just let me know.